Hello, welcome to Forest Focus as Nottingham Forest prepare to face Exeter City after a weekend of cautionary FA Cup tales. Who would have thought Forest would be the highest ranked team left in the competition? But will the Reds join Liverpool in suffering a shock on Tuesday night? Joining us to give us insight into tomorrow's opponents is BBC Radio Devon summariser and co-host of the You Don't Know What You're Doing podcast, Jon Beer. Jon, good to have you with us this morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very well. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
No, looking forward to it. We'll get into the game, obviously. You Don't Know What You're Doing. Did that used to be my new football club? Is that right?
It did, yeah. And it's sort of, kind of like, when Wembley was named New Wembley at the start, it sort of it wasn't sort of his new football club anymore, or Davies' new football club. So it sort of needed a little bit of a rebrand, and it's done all right. It's done well, yeah. And I think people have really taken to the name. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we're talking about David Earl there, who, for people who don't know, did he move? You'll correct me if I'm wrong. I've listened to a few, and it's really good. He moved down that way and needed a football club, and he's adopted Exeter City, and he's become a proper fan. Is that a fair summation?
Yeah, so I think he moved down just after COVID. I think he wanted to get away from sort of the Londony area and wanted to just get away from everything. Because I think his partner is from around where he's moved to, so it's sort of in the Devon area. And I think he just put a tweet out one day saying, "I'm looking for a new football team in Devon to support. Here's the three that he sort of knew." Put a poll out, and ExeCity won, and as a result, the podcast started. And well, yeah, the rest is history. Yeah.
David Earl, people who don't know, the actor who's in Derek and Afterlife, works with Ricky Gervais. Really funny. I've seen some. I was watching some outtakes this morning that randomly popped up. Actually, how did you get into all this? If you don't mind me prying, how did you end up working with him?
Yeah, it was quite a bizarre the way it unfolded. I think kind of like most work that comes across people's plates in sort of the industry now, it was sort of on social media where they were looking for somebody that was a little bit more knowledgeable on ExeCity than what David and what Joe Wilkinson were at the time. And they put a tweet out, and sort of my name was mentioned quite a bit in the comments. Received a DM, was meant to be just a one-off guest, and then I did every episode since.
Oh, amazing. Brilliant. So, yeah, it's all about Exeter City. We want to hear about Exeter City. Tell us a little bit, before we get into this game, about their season so far in League One. How's it gone for you?
Yeah, it's been an interesting season. I think we're currently in this sort of horrible rut where we can't stop conceding goals, which is not great given the last couple of results that you guys have had. I mean, I think we conceded 6 the week before, 4 last weekend. So yeah, we can't kind of stop shipping goals at the moment, but it was sort of a really positive start to the season. We were beating teams with much bigger budgets than us, and we were positive. We were playing really good football. And then sort of injuries have really sort of derailed our season. We had our best player, arguably, in Tristan Crammer, recalled by Brentford and sold to Millwall. So all these different things have sort of added up, and we've struggled to sort of find our footing again, which is quite frustrating because I think actually had we managed to keep everybody fit and keep the sort of core and bulk of the squad together, we probably would be in a playoff push because, I mean, it's so tight in League One, especially in that sort of middle pack, but we now sort of find ourselves in a sort of relegation scrap, which is quite frustrating. But the FA Cup offers a really unique opportunity to cause upsets, and I don't like cliches, but there is obviously something about the FA Cup that allows you to believe and cause upsets. And we saw it yesterday with unfortunately our neighbours down the road beating Liverpool, so maybe we can do the same.
Yeah, I follow League One fairly closely because I used to work in Burton, so I watched them.
Oh yeah.
A little bit, and Shrewsbury, probably my local club where I grew up. So I follow them, and they're both rubbish this season. They're having a bit of a rally. I thought Burton would be rubbish when they signed about 50 players I'd never ever heard of, so that wasn't a surprise. So are you kind of about where you thought you'd be? I think you're 17th at the moment, or did you think you might be a bit higher?
I mean, I am probably on the more realistic side of football fans, which I think can sometimes be misinterpreted as boring. But I think if we stay up, given our budget, we have the lowest or second lowest budget in the division by a long way. So to stay up is it was impressive task in itself. I think the squad we had should be competing much further up the table, but given where injuries are and where momentum is at the moment, we probably do sit in a fair spot, and it's going to take a lot of work to sort of spin that around at the moment.
One of the things we've been discussing on the podcast, without obviously we don't see your games, we were wondering whether having this game has been a distraction for you on the horizon. Has it been a factor, or is it just the more injuries that have cost you then?
Yeah, I think like I think as a footballer, especially League One footballers and League Two footballers, they sort of live for these big games. That this is their one opportunity to sort of show and showcase what they can do. I mean, we've knocked Luton out the Carabao Cup last season, who are obviously a Premier League side, albeit probably not one of the better ones, like you guys have found yourselves this season. But we managed to beat them, and we saw a different side to some players where they were like, wow, like you can really step it up when they need to. In particular, Dimitri Mitchell that day was fantastic. Scored, got sent off. He did everything. I think so. Yeah, I think it's only natural for players to be distracted and maybe see that in the horizon and think, oh, I want to play in that game because it might be my chance to get a move or whatever it may be. But I think the main crux of what has sort of derailed in quotation marks our season is injuries, definitely.
How are you feeling about this game in general? We saw over the weekend. You mentioned Plymouth. I enjoyed watching that, but I guess you were pretty gutted in a way. But Birmingham ran Newcastle close. We saw in the previous round, Plymouth again. Sorry, not Brentford out, and Tamworth ran Spurs close. How are you feeling about this one, with all that in mind?
I think it's going to be. I think the most important thing for us is to put in a performance that is admirable, and then I think you just go from there. I think you're asking a lot to beat any Premier League side, even any team. There's some teams in League One that I don't expect us to beat at all. Like the likes of Birmingham and Wrexham and Huddersfield. I mean, the budget difference is just crazy. So to sit here and say, will we be able to run you close? Probably not. But the fact is that these things do happen, and like you said, you mentioned it before. We've seen it yesterday. We've seen it countless times through the years. We've seen it countless times with us. We sort of held Man United to a draw at Old Trafford in the early 2000s. So anything can happen. I just don't think in the state of where we are, it's gonna. And I think if we can just put together a good performance, it might kickstart our season again.
Tell us a little bit about, before we get into a few of your players, your ground, St James Park. It's one of the traditional grounds. What can we expect atmosphere-wise down there?
Yeah, I think they've got a really big sort of display planned, and I mean, but the atmosphere at SJP can be so special, especially on a Tuesday night under the lights. I've experienced so many fantastic games. We played Liverpool twice at SJP in the evening games, and we've had so many big occasions. Luton, obviously, last season under the lights, who we beat. It's going to be great. I think Forest fans should be excited. It'll be probably a ground they haven't been to, or most of them haven't done. So it'll be quite exciting. It will be a great atmosphere from the Big Bank, obviously the largest standing terrace in the UK. So that would be cool to see again. There's so many unique factors about St James Park. But yeah, like you said, it's very traditional. It's got a big gap in it where you can't build because there's a train track in behind. I think it's got a lot of character, something that I think is lacking in football grounds in this day and age.
You're a fan-owned club. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, we are owned by the Supporters Trust, which is you pay a monthly subscription anywhere, but you have to pay at least £2 a month, but you can pay up to whatever you would like, and that is sort of what keeps the club ticking. Yeah.
Can you just give us kind of sort of a brief history of the last 20 years then, if you don't mind, around ownership? Has it been rough times for you then to end up in this situation?
Yeah, we had some really rough times. I mean, we dropped out the Football League, and it sort of looked like we probably weren't going to have a football team to support. We had two owners called Russell and Lewis, who basically starved the club, took every penny out of it, put nothing back in. And actually, it was the FA Cup that saved us. I truly think we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that FA Cup tie against Man United, or at least it would have been a lot harder to be where we are. We've been a lot further back in our progression. So to have dropped out the Football League, had terrible owners, and then all of a sudden the Supporters Trust bought the majority shareholding of the club. It had about, I think it was £3 million debt to clear. We obviously drew Man United, cleared a lot of that with the original tie, and then we obviously the replay at our place, which was televised. So we sort of started from scratch then, and we sort of been building slowly over time. We've been pretty good at sort of getting the right manager in it for the right period of time. We had Paul Tisdale for a large part of those first years under trust ownership. We had Alex Inglethorpe before that as well, but we had Tiz for a lot of those years, and he sort of just steadied the ship. We weren't anything special. We sort of pushed for a couple of, we got promoted twice from the National League to League Two, and then from League Two to League One, but we were nothing sort of special. We just sort of a really steady ship. And then as time's progressed, we've sold academy players, and we've managed to build a little bit of money in the bank, which has allowed us to compete sort of top end of League Two, sort of middle end of League One now. But yeah, it was really turbulent times. At times where probably a lot of people at the football club thought there wouldn't be a team to support anymore. So it's I think it's one of the stories in football that doesn't get spoken about enough. And I think you've seen a lot over the years with sort of Bolton and Bury, and I mean Reading currently, where football teams are mismanaged, used as people's play toys, and I think it's just disgusting. So to be in the privileged position where we have say over our football club and nothing is going to come in, it's going to be run correctly, and you're not going to spend out of your means, and you're not going to starve it of money. You're going to have the right people who care about it running it, is the most important thing. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. I wouldn't trade that for Premier League football. I would never ever trade that.
Okay, you've answered my next question. I was going to ask, would you welcome either a foreign consortium or a Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney coming in and promising you a new ground and all that kind of thing? You feel you've been burnt too much in the past?
I just feel that is sort of, I don't know how to, I don't want to use too strong word. I think that is sort of everything that's wrong with football at the moment. It's all these sort of rich American or wherever they're coming from, business owners that are coming in and splashing the cash and making the playing field so uneven and so unfair, which makes I think our achievements even greater. And the fact that we're able to compete against these teams, admittedly we haven't beaten any of them, and we haven't sort of come close to beating any of them, but the fact that we are at that same level with, just look at Wrexham the other day signing Jay Rodriguez from Burnley. I mean, that's a ridiculous signing for League One. I dread to think what money's on. I dread to think, how they've managed to attract into the club. So it just is another hurdle that ExeCity are always having to jump, which is, that these people are going to come in, spend a lot of money, hop the divisions with no sort of real difficulty. They just sort of spend whatever they need to get out of that division and then keep plodding along. Hopefully in a couple of years' time, that'll sort of all even itself out, and maybe we can have a proper push for it. But yeah, to answer your question, I would never, ever in a million years, if I had it my way, would never sell the club to a consortium or anybody like that.
Yeah, you look at Birmingham, obviously, I don't know what they actually spent on Jay Stansfield, who's a player who, you've got strong connections with through his father, but it's mad the kind of cash that they've been blowing in League One, isn't it?
I mean, they spent more than some Premier League teams in the summer, which is just absolutely, I just can't wrap my head around it. I think the rumoured or the sort of discussed fee that they talk about was about 15 million for Jay Stansfield, which is just insane. But I think we had a percentage on Jay Stansfield as obviously our academy player. So we when he went to Fulham, we must have had a sell on him. So we've got a portion of that money, I would imagine. So I mean, in that sense, it's worked out okay. But yeah, I mean, if that is just one example, they've signed countless players, countless championship quality players, and obviously they're running away with League One.
Just before we get into hearing a little bit more about Exeter's style of play and players to watch, just a word for the Trent navigation and a reminder: you can watch the game at the Nav tomorrow because it is on TV. Video is a little bit loud, sorry. It was in my ear anyway. You can get £8.50 pizzas and it's happy hour during the games. That's 30% off draft ale and £3 cask. And it's obviously on the two big screens with the heated and covered big shed. And they'll be on inside too if you're lucky enough to squeeze in there. Right. Exeter style of play then. What can we expect? Will they get it down? Will they go long? What do you think?
Look, I think there's been a lot of debate with us this season about whether our style of play is actually detrimental to us. We always try and play. We will very rarely put the ball in behind or go long, not without a purpose anyway. We'll never just be sticking hope. But yeah, I think like I said, there's been a lot of divide, a lot of people that aren't happy with the way we play. I think a lot of people think it is has a negative effect on our performances. a lot of people would argue we don't have the defenders fit currently to play the way we want to play. Although we have made a couple of January signings, which will hopefully spruce that up a little bit. But yeah, the style of play will very much be trying to keep the ball, little triangles, overload in wide areas, and try and get the ball into the box.
What about players to watch as well? If you could pick out kind of 2 or 3 that could really threaten us.
Yeah, so we've obviously got Dimitri Mitchell, came through Man United's academy, was looking really promising last year before his ACL injury. He's fully back fit, and he's probably our most dangerous player. We've got a young lad on loan from Brentford called Tony Yagane, who's really direct, really physical, really strong. They'll sort of play in the wide areas. In terms of sort of like, we're kind of missing that direct proper number 9 that can sort of get in around the box and poach and finish. I think we've got Josh McGuinness, has been that in the past, but was maybe struggling to sort of do that this season. Although he did score a hat-trick in the FA Cup this season, so maybe he can pull out of the bag again. But yeah, I'd say sort of our wide areas are our most threatening areas with Dimmy and Tony. We've got Ryan Woods, who's sort of our conductor, plays in the 6, keeps the game ticking, has countless championship appearances. He's a really good player at this level when he's on it. So yeah, I'd say those are probably our sort of 3 or 4. We've got Caleb Watts as well, who's just hit unbelievable form. He's been probably our best player in the last couple of months and sort of plays in the 10 or in the wide 10. We sort of play with 3 10s across the back of the striker. So yeah, those would be the ones for me at the moment. But obviously we've got a couple of new signings coming in, so that will hopefully spruce things up a little bit as well.
And just on our team, I normally ask opposition correspondents who they worry about, but I imagine we're going to make a lot of changes. So you
Yeah.
probably couldn't pick any out, and I wouldn't mind that. But do you mind that we're making a lot of changes? Do you think it's disrespectful? Does it just make you think, yes, we can win this game even more now?
I don't think it's disrespectful. I'd never take that personally. I completely understand the notion that, that your younger players or the ones that don't get as many minutes should be able to beat us comfortably. I personally don't see it as disrespectful, but I think we've seen, especially yesterday, Liverpool put a pretty young side out, especially defensively, and that sort of, I think, caught them out a little bit. We played countless FA Cup ties where Liverpool in particular, where we held them to a 2-2 draw at home, where they sort of played a really young side, bar Benteke up front, and it can come back to bite you on the backside. I'm not sure where or how high a priority the FA Cup is for Forest. I honestly don't know, but if it is, I would probably just advise against playing the complete youngsters, because we've seen even yesterday, like with our neighbours down the road, it can bite you on the backside.
Yeah, I think the difference with us is our players that will come in are probably 25, 26. Willy
Yeah,
Bolly's like 32,
yeah.
33. So I think that makes me feel a little bit more relaxed. But I'm certainly expecting a tight game still, especially with it being at your place under the lights. I mean, I don't see us blowing you out of the water or anything like that. Would you see it that way as well, or not?
I mean, at the moment, yeah, we can see it as sort of 10 in the last 2. So, and I think, what did you? I know it's not going to be the same side, but you did beat Brighton 7-0 or whatever it was a couple of weeks ago. So, I'd be surprised if the game's tight in any manner. I think it'll be a pretty comfortable win for your lot. But like I said before, you just never know. And if the side is weaker than you expected, or whatever it may be, then maybe there will be a tighter game at play.
Excellent, excellent. Right, tell us a little bit more, John. If there's anything else you want to plug, where people can find you, do that for us.
Yeah, if you're interested in sort of the funnier side of football, maybe not so serious podcast style, then yeah, just check out You Don't Know What You're Doing. It's with myself, David L, and Alfie Indra. And yeah, we just try and take a little bit more of a light-hearted approach to football, in the sense that we're not trying to act like we know fully what we're talking about all the time, just trying to have a little bit of fun with it, and sharing our experiences of supporting a team that is all over the place at times. It's the highs are really high, but at the moment the lows have been pretty low this season. So yeah, if you're into that light-hearted stuff, You Don't Know What You're Doing wherever you listen to your podcast.
How do you become an Exeter fan? Is it a family thing or just a local club?
Yeah, so my dad is through and through ExeCity. It's the most important thing in his life, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, he always used to say to me, he works during the week so he can go and watch Exeter City play football. And that has always been his sort of mentality in life. And yeah, ever since I was sort of 2, 3 years old, been going, went to my first game sort of in the conference in that sort of period of time. And it was, yeah, I just sort of never looked, but I never didn't want to go as a kid. Apparently, I was always asking to go. So yeah, I guess I just sort of fell in love with it straight away. And then obviously, as the years have gone on, you become a more conscious person, and you obviously, as you grow up, you want to do other things but go to the football. But for me, it was always a constant in my life, and I would, yeah, I'm absolutely delighted that that's been the case because I love it and I love going, and yeah, it's just it's such a special football club. But I think everybody says that about their football club, so I don't like to preach that too hard.
Is it a big football city? Because I know there's like Exeter Chief rugby and Gloucester rugby. The southwest feels like a big rugby area. Is it a big football city as well, though?
Yeah, I think the success of the Chiefs has sort of it's especially for people outside of the city has sort of, I guess, made it seem like it's more of a rugby city. I don't think it's more of either. I think people go to both. I think people try to go to both as much as possible in general. I'm not necessarily a rugby fan. I don't really go. I don't think I've ever been, but I understand the appeal. I mean, they won the Champions League equivalent of rugby not too long ago, so they're obviously an extremely successful side. The way I always look at it is it's mutually beneficial for the city of Exeter when they do well, when we do well, whenever we're on the news, whatever we can do to get sort of Exeter's name out there a little bit more, I think is important. So yeah, I think it's where we both sort of help each other and climb on each other's back, if you like.
Good stuff. Good stuff. If you've enjoyed this, do us a favor, hit like, hit subscribe. Do consider Patreon or channel membership, or just give us a lovely 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. We shall be back tomorrow, post match after the game, and then on Wednesday with Gary Birtles and Pete, I think. And then we'll turn our attention on Thursday back to the Premier League and Fulham. So in the meantime, if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.